The stars shone like silver dust scattered across endless black space. The Terran ship Aurora Dawn moved slowly toward the bright blue planet known as Orin Prime. The world looked peaceful, wrapped in golden clouds that glowed softly in the light of its twin suns. Inside the ship, the human delegation prepared for the most important diplomatic meeting in years. Humanity had finally been invited to speak with the Orenian Empire, one of the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy. The Orenians were known for their calm logic, their beauty, and their ability to communicate through both voice and light patterns that floated around their bodies like tiny stars. Rohan, a young linguist from Earth, stood near the observation window watching the planet grow larger. He wasn't a soldier or a commander. He was simply good with languages, good at listening, and very patient. His job was to operate a new translator device that could turn Orenian speech into human language instantly. He took a deep breath, checking the small silver disc attached to his collar. "You better not fail me today," he whispered to the device. It blinked softly, as if answering. Behind him, Commander Naya, leader of the human team, spoke in her steady voice. "Remember, Rohan, first impressions matter. We're representing all of Earth. Be respectful, be calm, and whatever happens, don't improvise." Rohan smiled nervously. "I'll try my best, Commander." The ship landed smoothly in the royal spaceport, surrounded by tall crystal towers that sparkled like frozen rainbows. The Orenian escort waited below, tall beings with pale skin that shimmered faintly, wearing robes that shifted color as they moved. Their eyes were like liquid silver, calm and unreadable. Rohan followed the others down the ramp. His boots touched the smooth white surface of the landing area. The air smelled faintly of jasmine and ozone. He noticed that the Orenians didn't walk. They seemed to glide, their steps silent and graceful. A voice echoed across the port. "Welcome, travelers of Earth. The Queen of Orin Prime awaits you in the Hall of Unity." The translator device turned the melodic tones into perfect English in Rohan's ear. He adjusted it slightly, proud that it was working well so far. The group followed their escort through long corridors of glass and light. Walls shifted like living crystal, reflecting soft patterns that pulsed in rhythm with faint music in the air. Rohan had studied dozens of alien languages before, but the Orenians were different. Their voices were layered. Meaning could change with the tone, the light color, even the rhythm of breathing. That's why he had to wear the most advanced translator ever built. When they reached the Hall of Unity, Rohan stopped for a moment in awe. The hall was enormous, shaped like a shining shell. Streams of golden light floated above their heads, forming symbols that slowly changed shape. At the far end stood a tall figure surrounded by a gentle glow, Queen Alara of Orin Prime. She was breathtaking, not because of beauty alone, but because of the calm power that surrounded her. Her robe was made of woven starlight, flowing around her like a river of gold. Her eyes held kindness and deep intelligence. She looked at the humans not as strangers, but as guests. Rohan's heart began to race. He swallowed, trying to calm his nerves. This was his moment. He had one task: to greet her properly using the translator. Commander Nia stepped forward first and bowed. "Your Majesty, we come in peace and friendship, representing the people of Earth." The Queen nodded gracefully, her voice soft like a musical note. "You are welcome among us. May your journey bring harmony." Then she turned her gaze to Rohan. "And who is this one who carries the language of your kind?" Rohan felt the air leave his lungs for a second. He stepped forward, bowed slightly, and pressed the translator button on his collar. "Your Majesty," he began carefully, "I am Rohan of Earth, your humble partner in understanding." But at that exact moment, the translator flickered. The blue light turned red, then green, and in a soft tone it projected his words in Orenian language. The hall grew silent. The Queen blinked, surprised. The nobles whispered among themselves. Rohan frowned. Something was wrong. The Queen's expression softened, almost amused. She said something in her own tongue, and the translator whispered the meaning to Rohan. "You honor me greatly, my chosen bond." "Bond?" Rohan whispered. "Wait, no, that's not what I—" The translator blinked again, and his next words came out as, "Yes, my beloved wife." The room went completely silent. The entire Orenian court stared at him. Commander Nia's jaw dropped. One of the human guards coughed awkwardly. Rohan felt his ears burn. He had just called the queen of an interstellar empire his wife. Queen Alara tilted her head slightly, the faintest smile forming on her lips. Wife? She repeated as if tasting the unfamiliar word. The translation lights around her crown shimmered in soft pink, a color Rohan had learned meant amusement. Rohan tried to fix it quickly. No, Your Majesty. The device, it's broken. But the translator spoke before he finished. To the Orenians, it came out as, "You are too perfect for words, my heart fails me in your presence." Rohan almost fainted. Commander Nia whispered through gritted teeth, "Rohan, stop talking." The queen raised her hand gently, silencing everyone. "Your customs are strange, human," she said softly, "but charming. It seems in your world honesty of affection is shown first before diplomacy." Rohan opened his mouth to protest, but Nia stepped in, bowing deeply. "Your Majesty, we apologize for—" Alara interrupted her kindly. "There is no need for apology. The sincerity of your companion has been heard by all. Such courage is rare." Rohan stared helplessly at his malfunctioning translator, which now blinked in bright pink as if it was proud of itself. After the formal ceremony ended, the delegation was escorted to their quarters in the palace. Rohan followed in a daze, his mind spinning. The translator had betrayed him completely. Inside his assigned chamber, filled with soft light and gentle fragrances, he sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the small device. "You've ruined my life," he said softly. The translator blinked green as if saying, "You're welcome." He groaned and ran a hand through his hair. All his training, all his care, and in one glitch he had somehow proposed to the most powerful woman on the planet. Moments later, Commander Nia entered the room, trying hard not to laugh. "You might have just created the fastest interstellar marriage in history," she said. "This isn't funny, Commander. Yes, they think you're the Queen's chosen bond," Nia said, shaking her head. But surprisingly, she doesn't seem offended. In fact, she looked interested. Rohan sighed. "Interested? Great. Maybe she collects husbands from other galaxies." Nia smiled slightly. "Relax, we'll fix it in the morning. The tech team will recalibrate the translator, just don't say anything else in public." But the next morning, everything became even more complicated. A palace messenger arrived, bowing deeply. "The Queen invites the human Rohan to breakfast in the Garden of Lights." Rohan's heart jumped. "Breakfast? With her?" "Yes," the messenger replied. "It is the custom for newly bonded ones to share the dawn meal." Nia couldn't hold back her laughter this time. "Looks like you're moving fast, Ambassador," Rohan groaned. "I'm not her husband. I'm not even her friend. I just said the wrong word." Yet deep inside, curiosity started to grow. Queen Alara had not seemed angry. There had been warmth in her eyes, something gentle and intelligent. Maybe she had seen the error for what it was and a harmless mistake. Or maybe she understood something he didn't yet. The Garden of Lights was even more beautiful than the hall. Soft grass glowed under his feet. Trees shimmered with light instead of leaves. A small fountain sang with a melody that changed every few seconds. Queen Alara stood by a pool of clear water, her reflection rippling like a second star. She turned as Rohan approached. "Good morning, my," gasped she said with a slight pause, as if choosing the word carefully. Rohan bowed. "Your Majesty, I truly apologize for yesterday's mistake." The translator malfunctioned. She smiled kindly. Mistake or not, it revealed something rare. Your people speak from the mind, but that device spoke from the heart. He didn't know how to answer that. For a long moment they stood in peaceful silence, the sound of glowing water filling the air. Finally, Alara spoke again. "Perhaps this accident is not a problem, but a beginning. You humans bring warmth where logic grows cold. Maybe that is why the stars guided you here." Rohan felt something shift in him, a strange mix of respect, awe, and an unfamiliar warmth. He realized that the translator might have glitched, but maybe, just maybe, it had opened a door no technology could have planned. And somewhere deep in the palace, the translator's lights blinked softly, as if it knew exactly what it had done. Morning light spilled through the shining walls of the Orenian palace. Rohan stood by the balcony of his chamber, staring at the floating gardens below. From his height he could see the twin suns rising together over the horizon, painting the city in soft gold. The towers glittered like crystal forests, and airships drifted lazily through the glowing mist. It looked peaceful, almost like a dream, but inside his mind, Everything was chaos. He replayed the scene from yesterday again and again, the translator's glitch, the Queen's calm smile, and the way the whole royal court had reacted when he accidentally called her wife. The words still echoed in his head like an embarrassing echo that wouldn't fade. "Maybe I should jump into that glowing river," he muttered. "At least it might wash away my humiliation." A soft knock came at the door. When it opened, Commander Nia entered, holding a small device in her hand. "You might want to look less like a criminal." "The Queen has invited us to breakfast again," Rohan groaned. "Again, I can't face her. She probably thinks I'm planning our honeymoon." Nia smiled. "Relax, Rohan, she doesn't seem angry. In fact, she requested you personally. And before you say anything foolish again, the tech team has fixed your translator. It's fully calibrated." He took the silver disc from her hand. "You're sure it's working?" "Absolutely. I tested it myself. No more calling anyone your wife." Rohan clipped it onto his collar, sighed deeply, and straightened his jacket. "All right. Let's go fix this royal misunderstanding before the entire galaxy hears about it." The Garden of Lights looked even brighter under the morning suns. Streams of liquid light flowed between the trees. Flowers glowed like tiny lanterns. The air was full of gentle music from unseen sources. Queen Alara stood near a silver table beneath a tree, whose branches shimmered in soft pink light. She was not wearing her ceremonial robes today, but something simpler, a flowing gown of blue that matched the sky. When she turned to greet him, her expression was warm and calm. "Good morning, Rohan of Earth," she said. "I trust your rest was peaceful." "It was confusing, Your Majesty," Rohan replied carefully. "But peaceful, yes," she smiled slightly. "Confusing is often the beginning of understanding." He sat down across from her. On the table were crystal dishes filled with strange but beautiful food, fruits that glowed from within, bread that shimmered like pearl dust, and cups of blue tea that gave off a faint glow. Rohan decided to be polite. "Everything looks amazing." "It pleases me to hear that," the Queen said. "In our tradition, a morning meal shared after a declaration of bond is a sacred sign of trust." Rohan nearly choked on his first sip of tea. "Bond? Oh, Your Majesty, that's what I wanted to talk about. The words spoken yesterday were not meant as—" The Queen raised her hand gently. "I understand your concern. Your commander explained that your translator malfunctioned." Rohan nodded quickly, relieved. "Yes, exactly. It was just a technical error. I would never presume—" "Yet," she interrupted softly, "sometimes truth hides inside what we call error. The stars do not arrange accidents without reason." He blinked. "Are you saying you believe the translator meant what it said?" Alara's eyes sparkled like silver water. "Perhaps not the machine, but the heart behind it." Rohan didn't know what to say. He wasn't sure if she was teasing him or speaking seriously. After breakfast, Queen Alara invited him to walk through the Hall of Memories, a long corridor where living light formed images of Arenian history. Scenes shifted around them as they walked. Explorers crossing glowing seas, artists shaping light sculptures, children learning songs that floated in the air like ribbons. Rohan was fascinated. "It's like your memories are alive." "They are," Alara said. "Each light thread here holds an emotion or a lesson from our ancestors. It is how we remember without forgetting the feeling of it." "That's beautiful," Rohan said sincerely. The Queen stopped before one large image showing two figures standing under twin suns. Their hands were joined and golden rings of light connected their hearts. "This," she said, "is the Unity Oath. It is not only between lovers, but also between allies, friends, and even worlds. It means, your truth is my truth. When your device spoke those words yesterday, it reminded my people of this oath." Rohan looked at the glowing image, then at her. "So when I called you, well, when I said that word, your people thought it was a Unity Oath?" "Exactly," Alara said, her lips curving into a faint smile. "They heard a promise of trust and loyalty, and so they believe you and I share that bond." He sighed, rubbing his forehead. "This is turning into a cosmic misunderstanding." She laughed softly, a sound like wind chimes. "Perhaps, but misunderstandings can become bridges. You may not realize it, but your honesty yesterday touched many in the court. They found it refreshing to see someone speak without calculation." Rohan looked at her, surprised. "You're saying they liked my mistake?" "Very much," she said. They believe humans speak from the heart. It is rare among my people to express feelings openly. You, by accident, reminded them that sincerity is a strength. Rohan felt both embarrassed and oddly proud. Well, if my embarrassment helped, then maybe it was worth it. Alara nodded. Sometimes the heart teaches where the mind cannot. As they walked back to the main hall, several Aurenian nobles passed by, bowing respectfully to the queen, and then smiling at Rohan with clear amusement. He could hear soft whispers that the translator rendered as the human bondmate, and how charming he is for one so small. Rohan muttered under his breath, "Perfect. Now I'm the galaxy's biggest joke." But Queen Alara only smiled. "Do not be ashamed. You are part of a story now. Stories have power." Later that day, the human delegation met with Aurenian scholars to finalize the trade agreements. Rohan was supposed to translate, but every time an Aurenian speaker used the phrase Her Majesty's chosen bond, he cringed. The others on his team tried to keep straight faces. When the meeting ended, Commander Nia pulled him aside. "You're becoming famous, you know. The palace servants have started calling you Heart Speaker." Rohan groaned. "Wonderful. Just what I needed," Nia chuckled. "Look on the bright side. The Queen trusts you now more than ever. She even requested that you assist her with cultural translations personally." "Personally?" he asked warily. "Yes," Nia said. "Every afternoon you'll meet her to help explain human customs." Rohan frowned. "That's going to end badly." "Or beautifully," Nia replied with a knowing grin. "Depends how you handle it." That afternoon, Rohan arrived at the royal study, a vast room filled with floating scrolls of light. The queen sat at a round table surrounded by soft, glowing orbs that seemed to listen when she spoke. "Ah, my human bond. I mean, guest," she said with a small laugh. "Please sit. Teach me more of your ways." Rohan smiled awkwardly. "Gladly, Your Majesty. But maybe we start with something simple. Greetings." He demonstrated a handshake, a smile, and even the way humans use tone to show friendliness. She watched him closely, mimicking each gesture with graceful precision. "So," she said, taking his hand gently, "when I do this, it means friendship?" "Yes," he said, feeling slightly nervous. "It's a sign of trust." She held his hand a moment longer than expected. "Then we trust each other, do we not?" Rohan's cheeks grew warm. "Yes, I mean, of course." The translator stayed silent, perhaps wisely choosing not to interfere this time. Over the next few days, Rohan and Queen Alara spent many hours together. He taught her human customs, jokes, small talk, and even the meaning of laughter. At first she struggled to laugh naturally, but soon her laughter became genuine. The palace servants often paused outside her chambers, amazed to hear such a sound from their queen. In return, Alara taught Rohan about Aurenian traditions, how colors carried meaning, how silence could speak louder than words, and how their light dances told stories of emotion. Through these lessons, something began to change between them. The awkwardness faded, replaced by quiet curiosity. They spoke not just about language, but about dreams and memories. One evening, as the sun set beyond the crystal towers, the queen said softly, "In your world, how do you know when two hearts understand each other?" Rohan thought for a moment. "When silence feels comfortable," he said. She smiled. "Then perhaps we understand already." But outside their growing friendship, whispers began to spread in the court. Some nobles did not like the idea of a human sharing so much time with their queen. They feared that Earth's influence might change Aurenian traditions. Others believed this new bond could bring new strength and unity. Rohan had no idea of the quiet tension forming around him. To him, it still felt like an effort to fix a misunderstanding. Yet the more he tried to explain that he wasn't really her bondmate, the more the queen's court seemed to accept it as truth. Every gesture, every polite word was seen as proof of devotion. When he opened a door for her, it became a symbol of respect. When he brought her a flower from the gardens, it was a token of affection. By the end of the week, the Aurenian press had published holographic images of the queen and her human consort. Rohan nearly fainted when he saw the headline. Commander Nia laughed so hard she had to sit down. "Congratulations, Rohan. You're officially part of interstellar history." Rohan rubbed his face. History is overrated. Yet deep inside, when he remembered the queen's smile and her soft laughter, he couldn't deny that a small part of him didn't entirely mind. The next few days passed like a dream Rohan could not fully understand. Every morning, the twin suns rose over the shining towers of Oran Prime, and each day began with a new lesson, not in language, but in life. Queen Alara had officially assigned Rohan the role of cultural liaison, a fancy title that really meant the human who teaches and learns. The misunderstanding that started it all was still not completely cleared up, but nobody seemed to want to clear it either. The queen spoke of destiny, the nobles spoke of unity, and Rohan spoke very carefully, afraid to cause another translator accident. But deep inside, he was curious. These people were different from humans, peaceful, graceful, and calm, yet they lacked something simple, something that humans had in abundance: emotion. Morning lessons. Each day began in the Hall of Voices, a large room filled with floating crystals that stored ancient sounds. Queen Alara would meet Rohan there with a small group of her advisors. They would sit in a circle while light patterns moved around them, forming sentences in the air. One morning, the queen said, "Our speech carries 3 meanings at once: the tone, the light, and the silence between them. This is how we share truth without hiding." Rohan listened carefully. "On Earth, we only have tone and words. Silence usually means we are uncomfortable." Alara looked thoughtful. "Then perhaps humans fear silence because it reveals what words hide." He smiled. "Maybe you're right. But sometimes silence can also mean comfort." She seemed to like that answer. Her silver eyes softened and she repeated the word slowly. "Comfort. That is a beautiful concept." During these lessons, Rohan noticed something interesting. The queen's advisors were always respectful but distant. They followed her every order, yet rarely smiled. Alara, however, had begun to smile often, small, gentle smiles that made her glow even brighter in the soft light. And Rohan noticed that every time she smiled, the advisors looked slightly confused, as if trying to remember whether that expression was allowed. Teaching Laughter 1. Afternoon. While studying human idioms, Rohan tried to explain the phrase "funny mistake." In human culture, he said, "Sometimes something wrong can make us laugh, not because we enjoy the mistake, but because it shows we're all imperfect together." Alara tilted her head. "Laugh. I have read this word, but I do not understand it. Is it a sound or a feeling?" "It's both," he said. "It's when your heart feels light." She frowned softly. "Show me." Rohan hesitated. How could he show laughter? But then he thought of the translator Malfunction, that ridiculous moment when he called her wife in front of hundreds of people. The memory made him chuckle. The queen looked surprised. "That sound, it carries warmth," he nodded. "That's laughter." She tried to copy him, making a short musical sound that was so awkward that Rohan laughed harder. The translator tried to help by adding small notes of explanation, which only made it worse. Soon the entire hall was filled with echoes of laughter, Rohan's loud and natural, Alara's soft and hesitant. When they finally stopped, she placed a hand over her chest. "It feels strange," she said, "like sunlight inside." "That's exactly what it's supposed to feel like," Rohan said, smiling. That day, the court servants who passed by the hall paused in disbelief. It was said that no Arenian monarch had laughed in centuries. Understanding light. The next day, Alara decided to return the favor. "You have taught me laughter," she said. "Now I will teach you light speak, the oldest form of our language." They went to a garden where flowers glowed softly under the morning sky. She handed him a small crystal that emitted faint color waves. Each color carries emotion. Blue is calm, green is trust, gold is joy, red is warning, and white is truth. When we communicate, these colors flow from our bodies. Rohan looked down at his hands. "Humans can't do that. Not with light," she said gently, "but you do it with expression. When you smile, when your eyes soften, your body also speaks. You shine in a different way." He liked that idea. Humans shining without light. Alara then guided him through simple gestures, showing how to send meaning through light crystals. He tried, but his crystal kept flashing random colors. At one point, it turned bright pink and refused to change. The queen raised an eyebrow. "Pink means affection." Rohan quickly shook it. "I think it's stuck." She laughed softly. "Perhaps it is honest." He turned red. "No, I mean, it's a malfunction." "Yes," she said with a teasing smile. "Just like the first malfunction that brought us here." Rohan sighed, but he couldn't stop smiling either. Evening conversations in the evenings. They often walked in the Hall of Stars, a dome made of clear crystal that opened directly to the night sky. There were no guards, no advisors, just the two of them and the quiet hum of the city below. Alara loved to ask questions. Why do humans build cities that hide the sky? Rohan thought for a moment. Maybe because we're afraid of how small we really are. She looked up at the stars. And yet you reach for them. That is not fear. That is courage, he smiled. Maybe it's both. Sometimes she would tell him stories about her people, how they once explored hundreds of worlds but lost interest when emotions began to fade from their culture. We learned logic so deeply that we forgot wonder, she said. You humans remind us what it means to feel. Rohan listened quietly. He had always thought humans were the younger, less advanced species. But here he was, teaching something even the most powerful civilization had forgotten, simple human emotion. It made him feel proud, in a humble way. The Festival of Radiance a week later, the Queen invited Rohan to the Festival of Radiance, a grand celebration that marked the harmony between light and life. The city shimmered with floating lanterns and people danced in circles of glowing color. Alara appeared wearing a gown woven from threads of living light. The colors changed with her movements. Blue for calm, white for peace, gold for joy. When she approached Rohan, her robe briefly shimmered pink, and the crowd gasped softly. Rohan didn't understand why until the translator whispered, "Pink represents chosen bond." He froze. Oh no, not again. But the Queen only smiled, unbothered by the whispers. In our tradition, she said, we wear the color that reflects our truth. Perhaps the light merely speaks for me. He didn't know what to say. Around them, music began to rise, a melody of light and sound combined. Alara reached out her hand. Dance with me, Rohan of Earth. He hesitated. I don't know how. Then let the light teach you, she said, guiding his steps. The floor beneath them shimmered, responding to every movement. For a moment he forgot about the translator, the misunderstandings, even the watching crowd. It felt natural, two beings from different worlds moving together in harmony. When the song ended, Alara leaned close and whispered, Now the court will talk for another 1,000 years. He laughed softly. I'm starting to think your people enjoy misunderstandings. She smiled. No, we simply enjoy surprises. And you, Rohan, are the greatest surprise of all. The Whispering Garden. Late that night after the festival, Rohan walked alone in the Whispering Garden, where flowers sang quietly in the wind. He was lost in thought when he heard gentle footsteps behind him. Queen Alara appeared again, her gown dimmed to soft silver light. You left early, she said. I didn't want to cause more confusion, he admitted. Every time I speak, someone thinks it means something else. She walked beside him. Maybe it is not confusion. Maybe it is translation. The universe translates meaning through more than words. He looked at her, unsure how to respond. I came here as a linguist. I wanted to study your language. But now I think I'm the one being studied. Perhaps both are true, she said gently. Every bond teaches both sides. They stopped by the glowing pond. Their reflections shone side by side. One bright, one human. Alara turned to him. Tell me something about Earth, she said. Something small but precious. Rohan smiled faintly. There's a place where rain smells like soil. After a long dry season, the first drop touches the ground, and the air fills with that scent. It feels like hope. The Queen closed her eyes. I can almost smell it. Rohan hesitated, then asked, Do you ever wish to see Earth? She opened her eyes slowly. Perhaps one day. But for now, I wish to understand it through you. There was a pause, soft and peaceful. For the first time, silence didn't feel awkward. It felt alive, full of meaning that didn't need translation. Morning light poured through the glass walls of the palace like soft fire. The twin suns had risen together again, marking a new day on Oran Prime. But this day was different. It was the day when Queen Alara would present her new idea to the Council of Voices, the most powerful group of leaders in the Empire, and Rohan, the human who had accidentally called her wife, was at the center of it all. He stood in his chamber, staring at his reflection. His formal jacket shimmered faintly in the golden light. He looked calm, but his hands trembled slightly. Commander Nia entered quietly. They're ready for you, Rohan, he sighed. Ready to question me or ready to throw me out of the galaxy? Nia smiled gently. Hopefully neither. Just remember, the Queen believes in you. That's more than most people ever get. Rohan nodded, though his heart was still heavy. Yeah, let's hope belief is enough. The Hall of Voices, the Council's chamber, was built from living crystal that changed color depending on emotion. Hundreds of Aurenian nobles and advisors filled the seats that curved around the hall like rising waves. At the very center stood a circular platform surrounded by glowing light. Queen Alara entered gracefully, wearing a robe of pure white, the color of truth. The entire hall bowed in silence. Rohan followed a few steps behind her, feeling every eye upon him. Alara spoke first. People of Orin Prime, today we meet not for judgment but for understanding. Our visitors from Earth have shown us new ways to speak, not with light or logic alone, but with heart. This man, Rohan of Earth, has taught me laughter, honesty, and the value of imperfection. Whispers filled the chamber. Some faces looked curious, others skeptical. An elder Aurenian rose from his seat. His voice was deep and smooth. Your Majesty, with respect, we question the wisdom of giving so much honor to one who cannot even control his translator. His first words before you were of false bonding. How can this human represent truth? The hall murmured in agreement. Rohan's stomach tightened, but Queen Alara did not lose her calm. You call it false, counselor. I call it honest error, the most human of truths. Yet if you doubt his sincerity, then let him prove it. The elder narrowed his eyes. You suggest a truth trial? Alara nodded. Yes. Let us see if his heart speaks clearly when all words are stripped away. Gasps rippled through the hall. The truth trial was an ancient Aurenian ceremony, a mental exchange of memories and emotions. It was said that no one could lie during it, for their thoughts would shine as light for all to see. Rohan swallowed hard. Your Majesty, I don't even know how to do that. Alara turned to him with kindness. Do not fear. I will guide you. The preparation. Later that afternoon, Rohan was taken to a quiet chamber deep beneath the palace. Soft white light filled the room. The air felt alive, humming gently with unseen energy. In the center stood two crystal chairs facing each other. Queen Alara stood nearby, her silver eyes calm. The truth trial does not hurt, she said. It only reveals. You will see my memories, and I will see yours. Our thoughts will flow like rivers joining at the sea. Do you agree to this, Rohan of Earth? He hesitated only for a moment. Yes, I trust you. She nodded, clearly moved. Then sit with me. When they both took their seats, attendants placed thin bands of light around their temples. The room darkened and a low tone filled the air. Close your eyes, Alara whispered. Breathe. Let the light find your heart. The trial begins. At first, Rohan felt nothing but warmth. Then slowly his mind filled with images, not his own but hers. He saw Orin Prime as it was centuries ago, full of laughter and color. He saw people dancing in the air, singing with light around them. Then he saw it fade. The colors dimmed, the laughter stopped. Logic had taken control. Emotion became seen as weakness. Alara's own memories came. Her lonely childhood in a palace of silence. Her struggle to understand feelings her people had forgotten. He felt her sadness, her hope, her longing for connection. Then the light shifted, and she began to see his memories. She saw Earth, oceans that shimmered under sunlight, cities filled with sound and life, families laughing together. She saw children playing in the rain, friends sharing stories by firelight, people helping strangers during storms. The light around them brightened, filling the room with gold and blue colors. The council members watching through the crystal walls gasped quietly. They could see what both of them felt. Through the bond, Alara's voice echoed in Rohan's mind. Your world is full of chaos, yet it shines. You live among storms, but you carry warmth like a shield. He smiled faintly within the vision. Maybe that's what being human means. We keep trying even when everything feels impossible. The light pulsed brighter. A wave of warmth spread across the hall, touching everyone's hearts. Even the skeptical counselors looked moved. When the vision ended, both Rohan and Alara sat still, breathing softly. The revelation queen, Alara, stood first. Her voice was steady but full of emotion. You have seen his truth. His memories hold no lies, no deceit. His heart speaks clearly, of hope, compassion, and courage. This is the essence of humanity. The elder counselor rose again, his expression softer now. We have seen... And we believe. The human's heart burns like a star. The audience began to hum in agreement. The walls glowed golden, the color of joy. Rohan stood slowly, still dazed from what he had witnessed. "Your Majesty," he said quietly, "I didn't plan for any of this. I just wanted to fix a broken translator." Ilara smiled gently. "Perhaps the translator was never broken, Rohan. Perhaps it simply spoke a truth your mind did not yet know." He met her gaze, feeling something shift deep inside him. It was not romance, not yet, but it was understanding, something deeper than language. The message to the people that evening. Queen Ilara addressed her entire empire through a glowing broadcast that reached every corner of Auran Prime. Rohan stood beside her. Her voice was calm yet powerful. "People of Auran Prime, today we have witnessed a truth not from logic but from heart. For generations we have prized perfection and silence. But perhaps perfection has made us forget how to feel. Humanity has reminded us that emotion is not weakness. It is the light that gives meaning to thought." Across the empire, millions watched in awe. Some wept quietly as they listened, an emotion they had long forgotten. Rohan felt humbled standing there. He had never imagined that one simple mistake, one tiny glitch, could lead to something so big. The celebration of unity. Later that night, the palace filled with light and music once more. The queen had declared the first day of unity, celebrating the joining of two ways of life, Aurenian logic and human heart. Rohan walked through the crowd of glowing beings. Many bowed slightly as he passed. "Light of Earth," one of them said softly, a title of respect. He smiled awkwardly. "I'm just a linguist." But to them he was more than that. He was a bridge. At the end of the celebration, Queen Ilara found him standing near the fountain of stars where water flowed like shining glass. "You look overwhelmed," she said kindly. "I'm just trying to understand how this happened," he said. "One mistake changed everything." She looked up at the twin moons. "Sometimes mistakes are just truth spoken early." He laughed softly. "You and your wisdom," she smiled. "You taught me laughter, Rohan. You cannot take it back now." They both stood in silence for a while, listening to the peaceful music drifting through the air, a quiet moment. When the celebration ended, Rohan returned to the Garden of Lights. He sat on the soft grass thinking of everything that had happened. The air was cool and glowing petals floated around him. After a few minutes, he heard gentle footsteps. The queen joined him, sitting gracefully beside him. "Your world is far away," she said softly. "Do you miss it?" "Sometimes," he admitted. "But lately it feels like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be." She turned to him, her silver eyes warm. "Then perhaps the stars have placed you here for a reason," he smiled. "Maybe to teach your people laughter?" "And maybe," she said quietly, "to teach me love, not the kind from stories, but the kind that grows from understanding." Rohan didn't answer. He just looked up at the glowing sky, feeling both small and infinite at once. For the first time since he left Earth, he didn't feel like a stranger among the stars. The dawn after, the next morning, a message spread across both human and Aurenian channels. The Queen had officially announced the Accord of Two Worlds, a new alliance built on equality and friendship. At the bottom of the declaration, written in both human and Aurenian language, were the words, "Truth is not spoken by machines, but by hearts willing to be misunderstood." Rohan smiled as he read it. The translator on his collar blinked softly, a familiar sign of mischief. He tapped it lightly and said, "You started all this, you know." The device blinked again. This time steady blue, maybe, just maybe, it was proud of itself. The suns of Auran Prime rose slowly over the horizon, turning the crystal city into gold and silver. Every tower glowed like a torch of light. It was a new day for both worlds, humans and Aurenians. The Accord of Two Worlds had been signed, and peace between the species was now real. But peace was never simple. Even in the brightest light, there were shadows. Rohan stood on the balcony of his guest chamber, looking out over the shining gardens. The air smelled like flowers and rain. He should have been happy, but his heart felt heavy. Tomorrow he would return to Earth. His mission was complete. Behind him, the translator on his collar blinked softly, the same small device that had started everything. He smiled at it. "Well, old friend," he said quietly, "we made a lot of trouble together." The translator blinked green twice, almost like laughter. A knock came at the door. It was Commander Nia, holding a silver case. "You'll need to pack soon," she said. "Our shuttle leaves at dawn," Rohan nodded. "Right." Nia looked at him for a moment. "You've changed, you know. When we first came here, you were scared to even speak. Now the Queen listens to your words as if they're poetry." He chuckled softly. "Maybe she just likes how I mispronounce everything." Nia smiled. "You know, she's going to miss you. Everyone here will." He didn't answer. He only looked out again at the endless light of Oran Prime and wondered what home really meant now. A message from the Queen later that day. A royal messenger arrived with a sealed crystal tablet. It carried the Queen's symbol, a golden circle with 2 intertwined lights. When Rohan touched it, the crystal projected her message into the air. "Rohan of Earth, I request your presence in the Hall of Unity before sunset. There is one final truth we must share before you depart." Her voice, soft and clear, filled the room. He sighed. "One final truth," he repeated. "That sounds serious," Nia nodded. "Go. She wouldn't call you unless it was important." So Rohan went. The halls of the palace were quiet that evening. The light from the sun stretched long shadows across the floor. The servants bowed respectfully as he passed, but their eyes looked sad, as if they already knew he was leaving. When he entered the Hall of Unity, Queen Alara stood alone at the center. The last rays of sunlight poured through the crystal walls, wrapping her in gold. The Queen's request. "Rohan of Earth," she said, her voice calm but warm. "Your time here has changed my world. Our people speak of laughter now. They greet one another with kindness. They even argue, politely but with feeling. You have awakened what we lost long ago." He smiled. "I only taught what any human would." She shook her head gently. "No, you did more. You gave us heart. And now I must ask you something difficult." Rohan grew tense. "Anything, Your Majesty." Alara looked up at the twin suns setting through the high window. "The Council has offered me a choice. I may remain as I am, ruler of Oran Prime, keeper of order, or I may step into a new path, one that joins your world and mine. If I choose the second, it means leaving behind old customs, breaking tradition." Rohan frowned slightly. "They want you to choose between your people and the Alliance?" "Between duty and truth," she said softly. "They fear that I have become too close to humanity, that my heart now listens as much as it leads." He took a slow breath. "And what do you want, Alara?" She turned to him fully, her silver eyes bright. "I want to understand life, not as a queen but as a being among beings. You humans live with such noise and imperfection, yet you shine so fiercely. I want to learn that kind of courage." Rohan was silent. He didn't know what to say. He had come here as a translator, not a guide for a queen's destiny. A choice of hearts. That night the Queen called an open assembly. Thousands of Aurenians gathered in the Grand Plaza. Their glowing robes filled the space with colors that looked like the northern lights. Rohan stood beside her on the high platform, unsure what she would say. The crowd quieted as Alara raised her hand. Her voice carried through the plaza like gentle thunder. "My people," she began, "you have seen what we have learned from Earth. We have felt warmth again. We have remembered laughter. We have seen that logic without heart is emptiness. But to continue this path, I must make a choice. To stand as your queen under old ways, or to stand beside all life under new ones." The crowd murmured softly. Light waves rippled through the plaza, showing their mixed feelings. One elder called out, "If you step away from tradition, what will guide us?" Alara smiled gently. "Truth will guide us, and truth is not bound by custom." She turned slightly toward Rohan. "This human once spoke words that shook our halls, not because they were perfect, but because they were real. He called me wife by accident, and yet that mistake opened our hearts. If he could change us without meaning to, imagine what we can do together when we mean to." The crowd grew silent again. Then slowly the golden lights began to rise, the Aurenian sign of acceptance. One by one the citizens lifted their hands, glowing in unison. It was not just approval, it was unity. Rohan watched in awe. The Queen's courage had moved an entire civilization. The last evening, after the assembly, the palace became quiet again. Rohan and Alara met one last time in the Garden of Lights, where their first true conversation had taken place. The glowing flowers reflected in the still pool beside them. You did it, Rohan said softly. You made them believe in feeling again? She smiled. We did it. Without your translator, none of this would have happened. He laughed lightly. Funny. I used to curse that thing every day. Perhaps it was wiser than you think, she said with a playful tone. They walked slowly through the garden paths. The stars above began to shine through the night sky. I must ask, she said after a moment. Will you return to Earth soon? Yes, he said quietly. Tomorrow. My people are waiting. They'll want to hear everything. Ilara stopped and looked at him. And what will you tell them? He thought for a long time. That I met a queen who taught me that peace isn't just about agreements or words. It's about understanding. It's about listening even when you don't speak the same way. Her smile was soft. Then we both have learned the same lesson. The gift before he left the garden, Ilara took something from her wrist, a thin bracelet of crystal that glowed faintly blue. This is a light band, she said. It carries a small memory crystal. When you wear it, you will see what we see, hear our songs, and remember that our worlds are now one. Rohan accepted it carefully. Thank you, Your Majesty. She tilted her head. After all we have shared, must you still call me that? He smiled. Then what should I call you? Her eyes sparkled. Call me Ilara, as you did once before when your translator betrayed you. They both laughed softly, the memory warming the moment. The farewell. The next morning, the Aurora Dawn stood ready on the launch pad. The human crew was already aboard, waiting for departure. Rohan turned one last time to see Queen Ilara standing on the marble platform, surrounded by a small guard of shimmering light. The suns were rising again, painting her figure in gold. He walked toward her, stopping a few steps away. I suppose this is goodbye, for now, she said. But the accord of two worlds will keep us connected. This is not an ending, Rohan, it is a beginning. He nodded slowly. I'll come back, maybe next time, with a translator that doesn't call anyone wife. Ilara laughed softly, a sound that sparkled in the morning air. Do not fix it too much. Some mistakes are worth keeping. He smiled, touched his chest with his hand, the earth gesture of respect, and said, Light to you, Ilara. She returned the gesture, her voice calm. And warmth to you, Rohan of Earth. The journey home. As the ship rose into the sky, Rohan looked out from the viewing window. The golden world of Orin Prime grew smaller and smaller until it became just another bright star among thousands. He touched the bracelet on his wrist. It pulsed softly, and for a moment he heard faint laughter, Ilara's laughter, echoing across space. Commander Nia turned from her seat. Thinking about her? He smiled faintly. Thinking about how strange life can be. One translator glitch and suddenly two civilizations are friends. Nia grinned. Maybe next time we'll let you break the device on purpose. He laughed quietly. Let's not push our luck. As the ship jumped into faster-than-light travel, he leaned back in his seat, closing his eyes. The stars stretched into long lines of light, and in that glow he felt something peaceful. The bond of two worlds, born not from perfection, but from one beautiful mistake. Epilogue. The light between worlds. Months later. On Earth, Rohan stood before a crowd of diplomats, scientists and students at the Global Assembly Hall. Behind him, a massive screen showed images of Orin Prime, its golden towers, glowing gardens, and the smiling faces of its people. He spoke simply. When we first met the Orinians, we thought we needed perfect machines to talk to them. But it wasn't the machine that built peace. It was the moments between mistakes, laughter, honesty, and trust. The universe doesn't speak in perfection. It speaks in heart. When he finished, the hall erupted in applause. Later that night, as he walked home, he looked up at the stars. One of them shone a little brighter than the rest, Orin Prime. He smiled, touched the light band on his wrist, and whispered, Good night. Ilara, far away on a distant world, a queen looked up at the same stars and whispered back, Good night, Rohan of Earth. And somewhere between those two worlds, the universe listened, glowing softly with the light of understanding.